Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deckbuilding Derezzed. I'm your host, Code Marvelous, and today I'm joined by a guest from across the Atlantic, Constantine, otherwise known as Kelfecil.
Yeah, Kelfecil.
Kelfecil? All right.
Yeah, it's hard to pronounce sometimes, I guess.
So, Constantine, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into Netrunner and, your kind of Netrunner journey towards competitive play?
Okay, so where do I start? Damn. Okay, so I'm Greek, first of all,
I
and
never,
I
I
li
never would have guessed with a name like Constantine.
yes, I know, right? No, but I've mostly been playing Netrunner in the Netherlands. So I basically play in the Dutch community all the time. And when I came to the Netherlands 3.5 years ago, I used to play chess in the past a lot, and I did play a lot of board games, but I always played more like casual board games. I never got into really competitive on anything. And I started going to a board game shop, and there were some people playing Netrunner there, and they're like, "Oh, do you play Netrunner?" And I'm like, "Oh, I have the core set. Oh, you could play with us." And I went to a tournament. I got crushed.
I mean, that happens to everybody. We
Yeah,
all get
exactly.
crushed.
I'm saying it with a smile. It was amazing. I had a lot of fun, and I learned so many things. I loved how people played different things and everything. And there was this one specific guy. He's called Dean, and he played Jinteki. Like he always played Personal Evolution Jinteki with Hambuses, and I loved that. I loved like how he could pull a poker face and everything, and he could like just make you afraid of doing anything in the game as a runner. And I basically adopted the whole Jinteki thing, and I've been playing mostly that since then. I've tried many other things, even on tournaments like HB, Wayland, and MBN. But I always loved Personal Evolution and now Nisei Division. But yeah, I mean, since then I ended up organizing the entire Dutch community. I am now the main TO and main organizer of the Dutch community. I also helped a lot with Eurogrid.net, like organizing the people, all the TOs from Europe. So yeah, apart from that, I always thought of myself as a more organizer kind of guy. But
Okay.
then my decks, all of a sudden, I love deck building, and I never like to net deck. I feel, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna say here that net deck is the best thing that one can do because you learn how other people play good things. It's like not knowing how to cook and just taking the recipe and just cooking it yourself. Like doesn't mean you might not be able to make the recipe yourself, but you take something already tried and you try it out yourself and see how good you are at making it. That's like simple as I can get, and I love net decking, but I just
No.
don't do it myself.
Yeah, I mean, and I think
And
that's an important way. I think that's a really good way of looking at it, though,
yeah,
because some of the best decks that I've ever played have been the Dan Spinoza edits of really good decks, and
yeah,
then it ends up taking my play to the next level.
exactly. I mean, I always feel like when I say I don't like net decking, I feel I need to explain why. Because some people see it in a bad way, but it's really not. It's a really good thing to do. And in Netrunner, half of it is deck building and half of it is piloting the deck. So even if you're a good deck builder, that doesn't mean you're going to be good at Netrunner entirely. But anyway, one day I basically, my decks worked. Let's just say it like that.
Okay.
The first tournament I ever won was in Germany. It was a draft format, so I was not really surprised because I'm good at knowing what the cards do and how to combine them. But I was never good in piloting good decks at a structured tournament. But then I played at the Belgian Nationals and I did really well, which was very surprising. And since then I've been working on my own decks and refining my skills on that. So I think since like last year at the start of summer, I've been very competitive in the game. But before
Awesome.
that, I played in many tournaments, but I didn't really have that good of a luck. I barely made any cuts. I think I made one cut. So
Okay. So while we're on the subject of your competitive success, you are have had 6 tournament wins with what a lot of people would consider a fringe identity, the Nisei Division,
not
and
just six consecutive ones.
6 consecutive ones.
Yes.
And it's not like it's not like you're in a bad meta. You're in Europe. Some of the best players.
To
You're
be
gonna.
fair, to be fair, apart from the nationals ones and some of the store champs, the most like the GNKs and stuff here in the Dutch community, we have people that play really different things. So it's actually hard to expect things like include silver bullets for any eights and things like that, because everybody just plays really funky stuff. So you can just be your decks can get messed up out of nowhere.
Right.
But generally, in the other tournaments, I can say that yes, they did have success against the general meta because, as you said, the European meta has a lot of diversity, and they do play a lot of meta decks as well. Like they have a nice combination of both, and
Right.
that can really mess you up if you're not well prepared.
Right. But for those of us watching, for those of you watching at home who might not be familiar with this division, Nisei Division is the 4515 Jinteki ID out of the big box that says that whenever you and the runner reveal secretly spent credits, the corp gets 1 credit. So what you should read that as is whenever a Psy game is played,
Yeah,
the
pretty
corp
much.
gets 1 credit. And the really important thing about this is that it completely destroys the math of what the corp should bet.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we should answer like oh, before we get into that, by the way, the success of all those tournaments wasn't just because of Nisei Division, because I played Nisei Division and Silhouette at all of these tournaments. So it's more like the rogue like feeling that it has, like of my success in those tournaments is mostly because of those both of those decks, not just one of them. Which is what I really like. I mean, I didn't play like Andromeda in this or Kate in this, you know?
Right, you weren't being carried by
Yeah, exactly.
a more meta deck on the other side.
Exactly.
You're playing
Because
2 fringe decks.
exactly. Because I always had that experience, like in all the other tournaments that I played, always one of my two decks would be better because I would focus on building one better and actually knowing it better. Like always it was most of the times my Jinteki one. Because I knew how to play like the bluff games and all these things in the personal evolution. But I mean after that I basically tried refining both.
Right.
But I feel we need to answer a very important question now that you mentioned the Nisei Division ID. Like, why would you play that?
Okay, why would you play it?
So, basically,
Tell us, Constantine. Tell us why you play this identity when I don't think I've ever personally seen it in competitive play. Ever.
the thing is,
But I'm on the East Coast where we are meta dominant.
I get that question a lot. By the way, I mean, even at tournaments, I had friends telling me, "Oh, you basically won the tournament with a blank ID," because
Oh, that's mean.
it's very mean, but it's true sometimes because there are games that you might not even play a single side game. But generally, what I say is that replicating perfection is better in any case if you don't know how to handle the whole mind games thing. You have to be used to it. You have to play it a lot to get used to it. And replicating perfections is just by far a bit better because it just creates a whole click compression thing. You know, like the whole having to run central to run remote. I mean, that one click can make a huge difference in many cases. But Nisei Division, the reason why I play it personally is not only because I love side games, but also because, as you said yourself, it destroys the whole math around the side game. And even people that are good at side games start thinking like, okay, I can spend credits. I can spend like 1. He can spend 1. He won't lose anything. So it destroys the math out of it, as you said. I'm gonna repeat that, but it also provides you a credit in very dire situations. In very very dire situations, like even when having 2 credits left and they see a future perfect, they can run it 3 times and you can still be at 2 credits. Like if you play it right, I've had situations where my best streak with Caprice was 13 runs on a naked Caprice, and they never got in.
Oh, that's
I
so
mean, it's
awful.
very brutal. It's very brutal. And most people after that, like after a few tournaments where they knew how good I was at side games, they just stopped running after 2, 3 runs. But that's that's still not a reason to not run Caprice, of course. And I'm not saying like I'm the best at side games. I'm good, but I'm not the best. I've
Right.
seen people that actually can tell what I'm gonna bet.
I'm the worst. I'm like legitimately the worst at side games.
Why?
Like,
Why would you
so
say
bad.
that?
I'm really good at picking what the opponent is going to pick. I'm actually really good at runner side games, and I'm terrible at corp side games.
No, but generally, Nisei Division provides that 1 credit difference in very dire situations, and it's mostly because it helps with winning the side games. Some side games can be very important, and it makes a huge difference. Like a snowflake is, let's say, like it's like a wall of static that plays a side game in order to end your run, but it costs
Right.
only 1.
Right.
That's a big difference, and they can work as a pop-up window when you don't really care about them going in, or if you want them to go in and they don't really know that. And if they want to break it, it's still a 3 strength. Is a 3 strength barrier, which
Right.
you rest for 1 credit. So that's perfect.
That's pretty good. And on that note, let's kind of get into like the nuts
Yeah,
and
of course.
bolts of the deck. And as we're looking at this, there's a couple of neat things that you don't necessarily really see in Jinteki a lot of time, and there's other things that you see all the time, some of the bread and butter Jinteki stuff. But let's talk, I'd say, first about, let's go with agendas. Let's talk about the agenda suite.
Yeah, agenda suite.
So you got 3x Global Foods. I hear that's a pretty good agenda.
Yeah, it's a pretty good agenda, isn't it? I hated it, but then I tried it myself, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good, I should play it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I used to play the first edition of the first edition was called Little Garden, the one that ran with Cerebral Static. It was more rogue. I call it rogue because people didn't know if I ran Scorched Earth or not, and my success in the first tournament was actually because of that. And then my success in the Greek Nationals, where I came third, was because people thought I was running that, but I wasn't. And I was running the upgrade Us from House Byroid.
Right.
I was running that instead of Scorches, and he helped me score with the remotes and everything.
Right, because they have to beat the Caprice just to face the Ash.
Yeah, exactly. So the agenda suite, I always say to everybody that I actually teach Netrunner to some people. Let's mention that as well, by the way. There's a awesome Steam hack thread for people that want to learn Netrunner that can get help from people that already know Netrunner. It's real nice. It's a real nice initiative. But anyway, the people that I teach Netrunner to, I always tell them that the agenda suite is the most important part of your deck. It actually defines how you play your deck, because you can have any kind of combo in there, but nothing will work if the agendas aren't right. Both from the perspective of you having to score them and the perspective of the runner that has to steal them. Do they do bad things? Are they hard to steal? Are they annoying when scored? Do they have a special effect? So in this case, the agendas are just annoying.
Well, right.
So what you want to do is basically the Future Perfect, of course, because it's hard to steal and it's a side game. I mean, it's an obvious inclusion. And the Global Food Initiative, for the thing that everybody knows it for, it's a 3/5 that is just 2 points when the runner gets it. So in a 54 card deck, which we didn't mention that, by the way, it's 54 cards. And I've been playing it with 54 cards even before Museum of History was known, which is really weird, but it has been working. I wanted to try out 54 card decks, and it actually worked out.
Right. But you have 8, which is pretty much, that's super low for 54 cards. That's worth noting.
Exactly. So with Global Food Initiative, you can actually make it even lower. So your 8 agendas in a 54 card deck, and 3 of them require side game to play, and 5 of them are just 2-pointers. So unless you're running a Film Critic, you're not really going to make it. And even with Film Critic, I don't really personally like Film Critic because it creates too much click compression, because you need to take it and then spend 2 clicks to do it. Sure, it's great because you don't have to play the side game and other things, but I mean, how many times do you really need that? But
and then the last 2.
That's my opinion, though. But Nisei Mark II, because it's Nisei Division, you play Caprice Nisei, and you want to be able to end the run, if you lose a Caprice game. And Future Perfect, I already mentioned that.
I mean, and Nisei's just good. It's any non-damage based Jinteki is just Nisei's good, because you're I finally lost a side game. Go all the way back out and do it again. However,
as much as I love Nisei Mark II, and that was an idea that I took from the famous Replicating Perfection, of course. I mean, I'm not taking credit for it. I always loved 3-pointers. I don't like having to advance and actually letting them know that it's an agenda. So I always liked the bluff aspect of agendas in Jinteki. That's why I liked Medical Breakthrough as well, because it allowed Jinteki to have another 3 advancement agenda when one is scored. So I replaced the Nisei Mark IIs to see if it works better, and I put 2 Clone Retirements and 1 Philotic Entanglement in the latest iteration of the deck, and it actually works way better, because Philotic is just an agenda that can be scored easily, and it's a 2/3 that with a nice effect if they have scored 1 or 2 agendas. You can snipe something out of their hand. And Clone Retirement is really good because it can be scored out of hand, and the Corp doesn't expect it in most cases. The Clone Retirement is all really played. I haven't seen many people play Clone Retirement. And when you have 6 3-pointers, it's really nice to have at least 2 1-pointers that you can score out of hand just for the final point.
Right. You can close the game without actually having to put in an agenda in a server.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice. So we're not going to go over why we've got Jacksons, because we've got Jacksons for the same reason. We've got everything. Yeah. What are the shocks in here really to do?
It's because it's a very fat deck. I mean, there are a lot of things in there, and I used to play. We have to mention economy here, because I used to play a lot of Facet Economy, like 3 Sun use, 3 pads, and 3 mental health clinics instead of
Okay.
Celebrity Gift and Restructure. And then Wizard became a thing. It was always a thing, but then it became even more of a thing. So I had to drop that. I had to go with normal economy. And I didn't like Celebrity Gift because, as you can see, I play Scorched Earth and Seashores. So if they see either of the two, they kind of, start sniffing that something is going wrong.
Right.
So
On that note, though, if you told me a year and a half ago that Wizard would be a dominant runner in the meta, I would have laughed in your face.
yeah, me too. I would be like, "What, Wizard? Come on, man! It's like that's an ID nobody plays."
Yeah. But yeah, so the shocks are just, picking cards out of people's hands,
Yes.
thinning them out for Scorched Earth kills, and then protecting archives, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Protecting archives as well. It's pretty great. And I just like it because I can put my Jackson in the. I always make one remote. I rarely make a second remote because this iteration of the deck allows for play against bank jobs, which are very, very played lately in criminal decks. And it doesn't allow them to get the bank job money. So I would play my Jackson in the remote. So if they run the archives, they're gonna get punished for running the archives.
Right.
And Socks and Snare are just in the R&D because it's really fat, and I want them to just take some damage out of nowhere sometimes and just get them a bit scared. Because Jinteki, it's red, you can expect some things like that. And you can see I only have 2 snares. Even though I ran Scorched Earth, I could be running 3. But I only run 2 because I like the idea of running things times 2 just to scare them and have them feel like there's a third one. Like, there's not necessarily a third one, but if you see one, you're going to think, oh, there are probably 2 more, right? Like,
Right. And we have Caprice. Caprice
Yeah,
is doing
obviously
Caprice stuff for remotes.
Here, most people ask, why not play body as well, or play 2 Caprice and 2 body? The thing is, Caprice stays. Caprice stays on the board. And body is a one-use thing. I don't really
Right.
like that. I mean, it's pretty great. I don't really need the money anyway. I mean, both this iteration of the deck and the previous ones made a lot of money, which is why I'm going to explain why I play Scissors. But it just stays on the board, and I really like that. Whereas
Okay.
body cannot protect like for more than once. And I tend to I believe that when I put down a Caprice, I believe that I can protect the server for at least 2-3 rounds before I lose a side game, you know?
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. We have Hokusai Grids, which is one of my favorite underplayed cards.
I had a long discussion about that. Actually, a friend of mine was talking to me saying, like, why do you play Neural EMP? And I'm like, I'm of the school of thought that if you have a Neural EMP, it's always good to have at least 1 or 2 Neural EMPs in your deck. Even if you're not going for a kill, you can like just pop it out of nowhere at one turn and just snipe something really important. It's just really good to have. I mean, it's 2 credits anyway, and sometimes you don't really have something to do other than draw a card. So why not do that? But on the other hand, I thought, Hokusai Grid is 2 credits as well. It looks like a Caprice when unrest.
That's the ticket. It looks like a Caprice.
Exactly. And when you have so many upgrades everywhere, everybody goes like, wow, okay, well, I don't know what that is. It could be a body, and I could just get fired upon from like a really bad subroutine or something. Or it could be just a Caprice, or it could be a Hokusai, or it could be like a Midori. I don't know. I've even played Midori, so you can never know. And it's also 4 to trust. If you're not Wizard, it costs a lot. Like 4 to trust is a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So I love the trust cost mostly, and it costs us too. So why not? It's a tipping away a card if they don't trust it every round. So
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorites. So one of the kind of fringier cards that you never really see in competitive play is Self-Destruct. Tell me a little bit about why that's in there.
it's amazing. It's actually I've only gotten 1 kill with it, but it's not about killing people. You lose a Caprice game, you can res it and fire away the entire server. You're like, oh, I'm not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it.
Now, it doesn't protect... it does ice, too.
Yeah, it does ice too. That's the thing. But you don't really care because at that point, like it's probably end game. I've never fired at early game. I've always fired at end game where I'm trying to score like the last future perfect or something. And archives is already protected by 2 creeks or something. Like there's
Right.
always something in front of there. And you just do that. I mean, you just fire it in the other guy's face, and they either have to spend money to protect their hand cards, or they just take 3 net damage in the face, which is really good. But it's not that great. I've experimented with it a lot. It's pretty good, but lately it doesn't work as well because I am of the school of thought again that I don't like 0 trust cost cards. I played a lot of personal evolutions, as I said, and I always hated when the runner would go in my R&D. and will be like, oh, trust that. Okay, run again. Trust that. Run again. Trust that. You know,
Right.
doom bag, snares, anything. Like, there's zero cost, and they're just tipping away through your deck way too easily. So I try to include as few cards with low trust cost as possible.
That
Like,
makes
more than
sense.
3 at least.
And if you get lucky, you know, you've got 54 cards. Chances are, if somebody hasn't played against you in the past, they're not going to know that this is coming, which is also nice because if they're not
Yeah.
fully set up, or if they have a levy in their hand that they haven't played yet, and you
It's an
blow up
upgrade.
the whole server, you're
Yeah.
just like get it the hell out of here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's an upgrade, and as we said for Hokusai as well, it can be disguised as anything. Like if you put it down on its own, if you put it down next to 3 other cards, like it could be anything.
Right. So moving down to operations, we have just super solid event-driven Shinteki money. We got
Yeah.
3 celebrity gifts. We've got hedge funds and restructures. Not a lot there. You already kind of mentioned that one of the big reasons for the switch is that this is more dependable economy
Yeah,
against Wizard.
exactly. And I used to play Celebrity Gift in all my decks, and then I was like, I don't really like sewing cards, and I played Snoop in some of my personal evolution decks, and worked very well against I've had wars. You just trust I've got the wars. You don't.
Oh,
They don't take the cards.
so good.
Yeah, it's really good. And I realized looking at the runner's hand, not just trusting something, but looking at his hand was so important. And I was like, okay, that's really good, but it works the same way for Corp. You know, when I know what's in their hand, I don't even run it. So I was like, why do I play Celebrity Gift? I'll play Sanyu. And Sanyu worked amazingly well in the previous iteration, but then Wizard came out, as I said. So I went back to Celebrity Gift, and I'm basically when I play Celebrity Gift, even if I have a Scorched Earth, I just show it to them. I don't really care anymore. I like the fact that they know it if I have a Scorched Earth or a Scissors because they're gonna play more carefully, and that's gonna hinder the rest of their game because they're actually gonna be spending more clicks being careful and drawing up cards when they could be doing more things. Even when there is no danger, they're gonna be trying to be careful just so that they don't lose the game out of a surprise, which has proven to be really good. Like you have one Scorched Earth, and they're like, okay, I should try not to get a tag, or if I get a tag, I need to be real careful, lose the tag, and draw up cards. Even though I don't have anything to kill them. I mean, sometimes I
Right.
really don't. It's very rare that I do.
Right.
And Scissors, of course, I mean, it's just the deck makes so much money that I can Scissors away. I mean, I've never had a game that I didn't have enough money to actually Scissors.
Right.
I've had the couple that I was really denied, but those,
Right.
I played bad or got bad cards or something like that.
Right. And some of the best players in the game will often tell you that it's always good to have more money than you need. But by a
Yeah,
certain point, if you have a deck that makes lots of money but doesn't have any way to leverage that money into
exactly.
victory, it's a problem. Right?
Exactly. I
There's no
used to
point in
not
having
run
a
Scissors.
billion. Right. And that's why RP used to run Ash
Yeah.
because it's a way of leveraging money into victory because you end up, once the runner gives up, you end up sitting on a mountain of credits.
Yeah, totally agreed. That was exactly my thing with the previous iteration. I had when I started the asset thing with all the assets,
Yeah.
like with creeks and everything, it works very well. I mean, creek is an amazing card, by the way. You don't have to put it on archives only. And I always say that to new players because they see that it gets more strength on archives. They just put it on archives all the time. No, put it on R&D. I mean, they still have to break it. It's a 1/3.
It's
It's
actually easier to break as an Anarch when it's on archives because you just use a single David counter on it.
Yeah, exactly. So I always put it on HQ or R&D when I have something to reinstall. So. But anyway, it made a lot of money, and as you said, very correctly said, I made a lot of money and I didn't have a way to use it. And I was like, okay, I should play Ass, but okay, that's just a trace. Should I play something even more punishing? Like, what can I actually use that will really punish a runner for me having more credits on him? And Scissors is like the best. Even if you don't have a Scorched Earth, you can actually use it to trust a wild side or something. So,
Right. And they still have to deal with the tag.
yeah, exactly, which is pretty great.
Right. And we have 2 Scorched Earth. Anybody who's ever played any kind of meat damage deck, this just follows up and just makes it so that if people get really reckless, or if you're holding the kill combo,
Yeah.
you've got lots of money in the late game, maybe you're behind and you're not able to put anything into a scoring server anymore, you could just be like, oh, you made a successful run and I've got,
Yeah.
like 9 more credits than you. Good game.
That's another thing that the Sanyus were really good at because they actually activated Caesars. They're like, oh, with Sanju, you have to run it first click. And they just run it, they spend money, and you're already ahead, so you have a successful round to work with.
Right.
This
And
is really good.
That's like the Sand City grids in Titan. It's like, oh, did you spend 5
Yeah.
trashing a Sand? Sea Source double scorched. Get out of
Yeah.
here. So you got subliminal messaging, which is just hilarious in this deck because
It's really good.
Yeah, it's just good, especially after they see a snare or maybe a shock. They're not going to want to just run for the sake of
Yeah,
running. So then every turn that they don't, you're just getting more money to play side games with.
exactly.
Ah, so good. And it's one of my favorite pieces of art too.
Yeah, it's really good. I really like it. I like the whole flavor behind it.
Yeah. All right, so we've got only one piece of Psy Ice, and that's
Yes.
Snowflake.
So we have a joke, like an inside joke in the Dats community. Everybody's like, okay, now that you're having so much success with the Nisei Division deck, you need to play Bullfrog so that you win worlds, and then FFG has to make it a full art. But the thing is, most of the ice that is Psy is not really good, and I've actually tried it. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not just saying it. I've actually tried it. Mamba is way too expensive, and it can be broken with a Data Sucker and a Mimic.
right.
Bullfrog is not that great unless you're playing something with ambushes, like a deck with ambushes. Clairvoyant Monitor is not that great either. You have to have something installed, and it's actually a bit expensive for what it does. I mean, it's like a 3/4, right? Or a 4/3, I don't remember.
I can't
Three res,
remember.
3 res cost and 4.
I've
I
never
can.
played it.
It's quite good. I've tried it, but I mean, it's not great. Yeah, it's 4 res cost and 3 strength code gate. And
Ugh,
it says that if you win the side game, you place an advancement token or installed card, and you end the run. But it's 4 credits to res. For
right,
one more, you can have a Lotus Field.
right.
So,
Which just works.
which just has an end the run. And sometimes you
Right.
just want an end the run. So,
Yeah. And Snowflake is the best value exchange. It's a 3-for-1.
it's amazing. It's amazing. I love that card. I used to be like, okay, it's not really great. It's like a pop-up window. If they win the side game, you get a credit, but they're still through, and you pay the credit. But then Faust breaks it for 2 cards, and you just spend 1 credit, which is great, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's great.
And
We
it's a good starter ice. You don't spend too much money, and you protect really well.
right.
Like they might get in, they might not, and even if they do, if you might want them to be in. They don't really know that, so they just play the side game, and they can't really tell from the amount of credits that you spend, because you can spend 0 to gain 1, and you can spend 1 to just not spend anything and actually stop it still. So in Nisei Division, it actually works very nicely. It's very complicated if you think about it. I try not to think about it like that. I mean, I don't go that far
Right.
to tell you the truth. I don't go that far with thinking about it, but it just works. It's just really nice. It's cheap, and it's just I don't know. It's confusing. That's what I
Yeah.
like about it.
Yeah. I mean, we have Wall of Static. Don't really need to belabor that. It's a
Yeah,
nice, cost-effective end the run that you can
exactly.
just get. Cricks, we already talked about why they're great. If you've anybody out there has ever played Jinteki, you know why Crick's good.
Play 3 of them. If you play more than I don't know, like 4 or 5 upgrades, it's definitely worth it. Like it's just an amazing piece of ice. It's a 1/3 code gate. I mean,
Right. We have a Chum.
yeah, it's really nice. That's also really I love Tom. I used to be like, oh, Tom is great, but then it doesn't work. They burn the ice, and then again I tried it. I'm like, oh, Tom is amazing, but it actually works if you have the right set of ice. If
Right.
you can see like my ice here, other than Yagura, all the other ones are actually pretty high strength, so it actually works nicely if they don't break it.
Right. A lot of times it just becomes an end the run if they're not fully set up.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
they won't take the risk that it's like a Kamainu on the other
Yeah,
side and they just die.
exactly.
So we got Lotus Fields. Lotus Fields does Lotus Field business, and it's again
Yes.
Adam S. Doyle, one of my favorite illustrators.
I'm not very sure about it. Like, I'm actually thinking about removing it because it's way too expensive. It's actually 5. I mean, Clairvoyant Monitor comes into play here and actually acts like a good card all of a sudden, because most of the breakers that are being played right now for code gates and, yeah, for as decoders or breaking code gates generally, like even if it's an AI program, most of them would only make a difference of like 1 credit in breaking it, and Faust would break it for the same amount of cards because it's like 3 instead of 4. It's the same thing.
Right.
You have to still boost it by 2.
Right.
So I'm not really sure about Lotus Field anymore, even though it can be burned, like
Parasite.
by Parasite. I mean, it's a little bit too much money sometimes.
Yeah.
It puts you a little bit back, and I don't like the fact that it has 1 subroutine.
Yeah. I mean,
That's the thing that bothers me.
yeah, but I can get behind that. But you don't have a ton of other options available to Jincheki. I mean, there's some wiggle room, but it's one of the best choices you have because their
I think,
code gates are kind of eh. They're
yeah, It's just an end the round. That's a nice thing. Otherwise, I would play 2 Jaguars and 1 Lotus Field. If it
That makes
wasn't,
sense.
if Jaguar had an end the round, I would be playing 2 Jaguars.
Right.
It will make
So
more sense.
we got 3 Kamanyus, because Kamanyu's a pretty good card, I hear, especially when people are playing Faust.
Exactly. I heard it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, I heard it's pretty good. Lose your hand or lose your hand.
Yes, exactly. Unless they play, I saw today. I actually played a tournament today, and I saw somebody play Faust with feedback filter. And I'm like, oh, that's smart. I'm like, oh, that
Yeah.
works against Komainu, I guess.
Yeah, that works. And then we have Susano no
Mikoto.
Mikoto.
Which is, it's
You're,
just a huge stopper ice. I mean, you have the money, and if you're not gonna burn the other person, if they're protected or anything, you just invest in that. I mean,
and
as
it
you said, if you have the money, use it.
right, and if you hit it and you don't have ice on archives, and you've got shocks in there.
That barely ever happens. They usually have to face a creek. I've barely ever had that where they go directly into the socks. That's never the plan, actually.
Right, but they're gonna have to not go where they want. We have Swordsman.
Yeah.
Again, I hear Faust is a popular card.
Yeah, exactly. I've gone down to 1 swordsman lately. Even though I see a lot of Faust steel, I don't like the fact that, when I play against a certain deck, I don't use that card at all. I don't like having dead cards. I always like them to have some kind of utility. Sure, it's still a nice, and you can put it down and never res it, having the other person think that, oh, what is that? Why is he not resing it? But I would like it if it's actually something that works.
Right.
When there's no AI program.
Right. And we also have our last
Excalibur.
ice is a 1x of Excalibur.
Yeah,
Which,
I
when
used
it
to
works,
run
it works.
Yeah, I used to run 2 because it was really important, but nowadays I don't really care about having an Excalibur in front of the Capri server. I just rely on the side game. If I lose it, I lose it, but it has worked pretty well thus far, so it's not a problem. But also, I actually dropped the second Swordsman for second Excalibur because I like putting it on a central server, so that people that play Apocalypse can't Apocalypse.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing with that, is it is 2 cards for Faust to break without a data
Yeah,
sucker
exactly.
token. So
Which
that's
is
not
not bad.
insignificant for a 2-cost piece of ice.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. I mean, if you put it on HQ or R&D, it's actually not bad. Because they might have like a whole plan of like hitting that and then hitting that, forcing you to res that and thinking, oh, he's not going to have money to res the piece on the other server, so I can run that as well. But it just works in those cases.
Yeah.
It buys you some time in certain cases.
All right. Well, Constantine, thank you very much for coming on the show and going over the deck.
No problem.
gonna-
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. And we're going to go over to our test run segment next, and we're going to fire up the deck and see how we do against a real-life opponent. Everybody, go on to the StimHack forums and check out the Netrunner mentorship program. It's a really cool thing that Constantine mentioned at the beginning, that if you're looking to up your game, it's a fantastic program, and everybody who's involved is super nice. So, thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.